Hey guys, it's Ducky Donnie, and it's finally to talk about the long-awaited video that I've been hyping up for a couple days now. The case to remove Z plus Y and Z plus X. I've got the Mario baseball shirt my dad got me in Chicago, the Bowser hat brother got me in California. I'm ready, so let's go. So introduction, what is Z plus Y and Z plus X? So the tech Z plus Y, Z plus X, I'm just going to call it ZY, ZX for ease. It gives you control of the infielder instantly. Either the ZY is the shortstop, ZX is the second baseman, I believe. And allows you to control him even if the ball is nowhere near the character. It is a component of Fielder Select 2.0, which has been around for a couple months. Hasn't really been used at all until recently. Its primary use that it was used for when it came out, and what I believe it was intended for, was when pressing Y it gave you the pitcher, X it gives you the right fielder, and then it kind of just cycles through. Here's some footage of that, and some footage of not using that, what it does.
Risky
I'm
tags.
thinking, it's like, this isn't like something I'm discovering. I'm just like,
Oh, that's a high bunt.
If you,
Oh boy. How do I? There you go. I'm sorry.
Okay, and then later came Fielder Select 3.0, which when pressing R gives you the character closest to the ball. Here's a really good clip from Chris Toasty on that.
oh, the fielder swap.
What? And as we know, R has the potential of getting a character stuck, unable to move. But anyways, I'm going to argue in this video that ZY and ZX should be removed from the ranked game mode. And I will argue it is not a quality of life feature, a quality of life change, but rather a feature. And that this feature creates a meta shift and deviates too far from the base game. My solution is that Fielder Select 2.0 should be reworked to have only 3 buttons, Fielder Select as a whole should be 3 buttons, being Y for the pitcher, X for the catcher, and then 3.0 R for the closest fielder. So what are the winners and losers and the potential of it? No one benefits more from this tech than Yoshi. His strength in the middle infield, which is already a strong suit, it becomes even more powerful. I'd argue it's better to put him there than left field with this tech, or has the potential to. Birdo can see some improvement, but isn't as consistent as Yoshi. I'll play some clips now, or play some clips over my voice while I'm talking about this to just show some examples I got playing with Remke and some other players who got clips of it. Toadette, speed and sliding catch has been shown to be able to make some plays with it too. And then, so those are the winners. And then the losers, Wario specifically is Garlic, maybe the most nerfed tool, basically nullifying it really. I mean,
Oh, you're gonna shower.
Yeah, really good like
I was about to play strikers against somebody.
wow,
Dude, isn't that so good? Don't you love that tech so much?
no, this is justifying my point more. You can pretty much stop it every time with a decent middle infielder. I've seen it with Birdo and Yoshi. Yoshi is pretty much guaranteed. Birdo, pretty good too. Haven't seen much other characters use. This is a pretty new tech, so there's a lot that can evolve as, you know, it's tested out more in games. And I'll play some footage of that now. Another loser, PM, specifically Ready PM with his Falcon Pop, takes a hit.
I mean, come on. Okay, hang on. I want to test it. I want to see what Birdo can.
I would argue that DK is hit the hardest, as Yoshi effectively counters his best option, his amazing slap hit. I think the best slap in the game. He used to be, out of all of the push hitters that were lefty in the game, I always thought that DK was the best at avoiding Yoshi. I would say with this new tech, he might be one of the most impacted here's some footage of that's going to play. And like I said, the tech is pretty undiscovered, and there could be more to come. What's the problem here? You know, I mean, it's a new tech. It nerfs some characters, buffs some. So what? So I'm going to give a disclaimer beforehand. I believe that there are principles, 7 of them, that every mod that has been added follows in some way, shape, or form, should continue to follow, and has followed so far. And disclaimer, just hold your breath seeing the order of the principles beforehand, and just wait till I go over them for me to explain them before passing any judgment on them. So here they are. So Ducky Donnie's 7 core principles of adding mods to the game. So number 1, do not stray too far from the base game. Pretty self-explanatory. Number 2 and 3 are both, I call them branches of principle 1. Does not change the balance of characters unless absolutely necessary. And if Nintendo added this mod to the base game, how plausible is it that other gameplay changes would follow it? And if that's a little confusing, I will explain it with a specific example later. Quality of life changes. Many of the changes have been quality of life. Does it make the game more fun? It patches an unfun exploit or bug, which is kind of a combination of 4 and 5. And then 7 makes the game more competitive. And I know competitiveness being last on the list could be a red flag to some, but you'll see why I have it there. It is still very important as a principle, and one that I think, even though it's last, it is an unbroken principle. So, number 1, do not stray too far from the base game. One example is a lot of new net players come from, most people who join the server and want to play, they love the game as a kid, and they're like, wow, I can play this with people online now, this is amazing. And they want to see the Mario Baseball that they played as a kid. And let's go into the 2 branches now. So principle 2, or branch 1 of principle 1, does not change the balance of characters unless absolutely necessary. So I believe that characters should have the same value on Rio as a non-modded Wii. So like just the base game, you have a little tiny, the small disc of Mario Superstar Baseball, throw it in a Wii. I know it's a Wii, I know it's a GameCube, but I mean, a Wii is basically a GameCube that can also do motion control. I always played on the Wii, so anyways, unless something comes out to be game breaking, then a change should not be made that could affect a tier list for the base and Rio. So principle 3, the second branch of principle 1. If Nintendo added this mod to the base game, how plausible is it that other gameplay changes would follow it? Every mod was added was not in the base game. I know, mind-blowing. But if the clocks turned back and we got to add these mods to the base game, would Nintendo alter parts of the game to account for this mod? And I'll explain that later. So next, quality of life changes. Most mods that have been used are quality of life. Examples include Fielder Select 2.0, not including ZYZX, but just pressing Y to stop glitch bunting, and Fielder Select 3.0 to get a fielder when the game kind of decides not to give you it. Others include the Dingus Bunt patch and being locked out from quick pitching to certain batters like PD and BJ, because they have a really long delay after they swing and you can pitch it and they can't fully charge. So that's to avoid that. Principle number 5, does it make the game more fun?
If it's not fun, why bother?
I mean, pretty self-explanatory. I mean, yeah, it's subjective, which I'll get into later, but, does it make the game more fun? And then 6, patches non-fun exploit bug, as I said earlier, self-explanatory, like the quick pitching, glitch, glitch and dingus bunting are examples. Kind of a combination of 4 and 5, but now 7 makes the game more competitive. Despite being last on the list, every mod has followed this rule, and every future mod will likely continue to do so. It is super important to make the game more competitive. I just value these components over this one. I don't think, like, for example, the game should be more competitive if it makes it less fun. And I don't think that the game should be more competitive if it changes the base game, like in a drastic way. Because value and competition over a lot of these principles can open up a big can of worms and can really open up to a lot more changes that aren't really being discussed or present in discourse right now. So, how does ZX and ZY break this rule? Breaks Rule 1, or Principle 1, I mean, and specifically branches 1 and 2. There is an option that opens things to do in the game that were never possible, using your middle infield to get balls that you couldn't really ever get, and it was never intended to be possible. That is an important thing that I'm going to bring up later. It changes the balance of characters, which goes against branch 1. The most obvious is Yoshi. Yoshi is, I think, so much better. I think he moves up a couple spots on the tier list, could be number 3, maybe even number 2 from this change. I mean, we don't know yet. This tech is still very new. Not a lot of people are doing it, so there's still a lot of undiscovered things here. But even then, Yoshi still gets a huge buff from this. And you could see other fast defensive characters, specifically with sliding catch and good middle infield, get buffs. And DK takes a serious nerf and could very well see his draft stock fall if this tech becomes more widespread. Because, in my opinion, Yoshi, this is the first time in the game where I think there is a character that effectively counters another one. Yoshi kind of generally countered most push slap hitters, which is most of them, most lefty push. But now I think Yoshi, at least in the middle infield, effectively counters DK so hard that if your opponent takes Yoshi, it might be worth it to not take DK, because it really is that strong against them. And certain or all slap hitters can get hit with a nerf. We don't know yet. Still a lot more testing needed to be done. And now regarding branch 2 of doesn't change the balance unless absolutely, or branch 2, principle 3, if they added them out to the game, how plausible is it that other gameplay changes would follow? Wario's Garlic was not made with this switch in mind, and if they did plan to allow it, is it possible to change a star? You know, what if it goes further back to prevent, Yoshi from getting to it? Now it changes, it becomes a 50-50 and a sacrifice opportunity if it can get so deep. And that would completely change the value of the star, as is obvious. I mean, a 50-50 and a sac fly. I mean, if you have someone on third, people with Wario Star, I mean, I think you could argue Wario would be captain a lot more. But not to get off topic, that's just an example. ZX and ZY, I don't think is a quality of life change. It is a feature, a new feature. I will come back to this. Does it make the game more fun? Depending on who you ask.
Nice toad third base.
Which one was that?
That's one.
Oh, this is the base camera.
See? Doesn't it feel so good, Ducky?
It's subjective. Not every change has been subjective, i.e. Dingus Bunting generally was found to be pretty unfun. This one, a little bit of a toss-up, depending on who you are. It doesn't patch an exploit or a bug. This was never intended. This doesn't fix anything that necessarily. So, now let's go into some refutations of why this shouldn't be banned. So, refutation 1. Skill issue / it adds more competitiveness to the game. This tech is not the easiest to pull off, unlike Dingus Bunting, which is pretty easy, and it can be punishing if you do not do it correctly. And it's a new tech that allows another way for the best players to separate from the mid and low tiers. This tech does take skill and certainly takes some practice. How much, yet to be seen. However, it breaks principle 1, changes, essentially changes the base game a lot, changes the balance of characters, namely Yoshi and DK as two obvious ones. There's some others. Slow middle infielders could be hurt, and Wario and PM already are. I think Yoshi could become a staple middle infielder, which in a way could nerf Oh, I'm not signed into OneDrive. Slow middle infielders could be hurt. As I was saying, Yoshi can become a staple middle infielder with this tech, which inadvertently nerfs every other middle infielder, because middle infield characters have a lot of value because it's a scarce position and it's one of the most, if not the most important position. So if you add one more to that stock and one that's going to be a staple, you know, everyone else inadvertently goes a little bit down in value because you don't need them as much. And like I said, it's still incredibly undeveloped and could grow more complex as time goes on, so this could affect the game even more than it already does, but I would argue that it already affects it too much. So, Clapback 1 continued. Principle 3, I just talked about this. Would something like Wario Garlic be changed? The fact that I think it would be probable, you know, who knows with Nintendo, but that's why I said make it probable, because you never know. But it makes me weird that there's a tech in the game that was not built for it. And if we accept this change, why stop here? Why not, you know, maybe make trajectory more consistent with good hits, like better contact? Like, why not get rid of like certain bobbles, like the grounder bobbles, like Thanos talks about? Like, you really, if you're all about the competitiveness and not about changing the game, you know, we can really start to deviate from the base game and work to make it more competitive. But is that something we really want to go towards? Because no mod has really been attempting to go towards that yet, I would argue. So, refutation 2. There's counterplay to this tech. You can switch handedness with characters, as there is limited fielder swaps currently, 2 per inning, although that's contested, but I don't think it'll change soon. There's other options for the characters nerfed, such as going left APM, which I think is better anyways, or charging or going for banana with DK. And there's other options for Wario. Not like Garlic is that great anyways. I mean, it's really not that used that often. You know, 2 outs for a scenario. And even then, you know, if Yoshi's in left field, you don't want to go for it. And a lot of people say Garlic is not worth saving in regards to this tech. And then hit the ball somewhere else is another counterplay people bring up. So Clapback 2. I would say it's less counterplay and more limiting, especially DK losing his best option. I mean, I think he has the best slap in the game. You could argue against it, but you can't argue that he has one of the best slaps in the game. And I think Yoshi's shortstop limited so much that it could potentially fall out of the top 5. It does nerf it that hard. One thing is that shortstop Yoshi, he gets a lot of the balls that left field Yoshi would only get. So it just, there's no reason not to use Yoshi shortstop, especially against DK. And righty PM has to worry about Yoshi and Birdo. If they're on the same team, it's really done. You're not going for the Falcon Pop. You really can't. I mean, you could land it, but it's going to be so inconsistent. It's just not worth it. And if they are on different teams referring to Birdo and Yoshi, you still have to worry, because if one of them is at second base and you try and push it like you should, they can still get it. Birdo, not as reliable. Yoshi, pretty reliable, not always. And, like I said, cannot reliably pull the PM pop. Garlic, pretty much eliminated. A tool from his kit is unviable from something that was never in the base game, being ZY and ZX. And in my opinion, too much has changed from this to make up for competition and strategy that it adds. And then, can you put the ball somewhere else? Yet to be seen. Seems unlikely with a lot of the cast. Yeah, maybe Toadsworth. Someone mentioned Mario. But there's plenty of characters like DK. You're not ever pulling a DK slap. The only time, like, DK slaps are only ever hit on accident, and they rarely do land. So, I just don't think it makes up the massive change from the base game does not make up for the competition and strategy. And I don't really think it's counterplay necessarily when it can pretty much eliminate certain options of characters. You just have to go for another option. It's not like you can use that option in a different way. So Refutation 3 and 4, I put these together because they are connected. How is it any different from pressing R, which is manual fielder select 3.0, or dingus bunting, or glitch bunt, / we already changed the game. And the second refutation 4, this is a quality of life improvement, so why are we removing it? Because that's one of the principles that you stated. And, you know, the game is limited with its AI for being such an old game. Giving power to the fielder can help compensate with this problem. So there's going to be a little bit of a background to get into this discussion beforehand. The game attempts to give you the closest fielder, but as we know, it's not always consistent. It's an old game. The coding is just not up to date with modern expectations, and fielder select 3.0 pressing R is used to make up when the game's age doesn't allow for it. It stays in spirit with the initial game design of trying to give you the character that you want and that's closest to the ball. That's what the game tries to do. R does that, makes up for when the game doesn't do that for you. And dingus bunting, it's a result of a way for the game designed to help with bunts, because when you show a bunt, the characters move forward in anticipation of a bunt. So pulling back, as we know, gives an out of position fielder, and no one generally finds it fun. And neither with glitch bunting. It's cheap, so you can do. If it wasn't modded out with Y giving the pitcher in fielder select 2.0, bunting would very likely, pretty much guaranteed, be banned. And these mods, I would say, are generally unintrusive. Are, like I said, it's in line with design, even though it's not in the base game. Dingus bunting, you can gentlemen's to be like, yo, don't dingus bunt me, man. Like if you're playing on like an unmodded game. Same with glitch bunting, you know, let's not do bunting. And yeah, like with fielders like 2.0, you can go for bunts and optimally play them, where if you're playing on an unmodded game, you just kind of can't go for bunts. But I think that's a quality of life change. But either way, it's relatively unintrusive. It doesn't change anything drastic about the game. So, continued. It's a feature, not a quality of life change. I would say all the other mods, they're quality of life changes. ZYZX, no. The game was designed to give you the closest fielder, not to give you access to whoever you want, whenever you want. Plays can be made, as you've seen throughout the video, that were never before possible. It brings us further from the base game. It changes character balance, like I've been saying, Yoshi, DK, and some other characters less or more so. And like I said, initially newer players are going to come in a server expecting the game they know and love, and to see some characters judged differently from something that was never possible, I don't think will bode well with a lot of them. Maybe there'll be some that thinks it's cool, but I think in general, for the majority of people, it's not going to be very appealing. So fielder select 3.0, 2.0, ignoring ZYZX, it does not discriminate, and what I mean by that is no character generally gets more or less than another from this. Like, you could argue maybe, I know Diddy was a good glitch bunter, but I mean no one's not drafting Diddy now because, you know, you can't glitch bunt. And with dingus bunting, some got a boost more than others, but pretty much everyone that's slapping gets a benefit from it. And I would say the benefit Yoshi gets from ZYZX alone is larger than any of the previous mods gave to any one character combined. So Refutation 5 is going to be a quick one. You should have access to every fielder in the game. Doesn't make sense to not be able to choose which fielder you want at all times. And this goes back to the Refutation I just talked about. Or goes back to the end of Refutation 5. I meant 4. I did change them a little bit. The game was not designed with this feature in mind, and affects things that were never planned, like Wario Garlic pretty much being completely unusable. So final Refutation. Defense doesn't need a nerf. Offense is already way better than defense, as we all know. Why are we going to hinder defense in an offensive heavy game already. So the final clapback. It's not a general defense nerf, but rather a huge Yoshi buff, a decent Birdo buff, a Toadette buff, and probably a fast middle infield buff, a massive DK nerf, PM, potentially other poppers. Haven't tested them out yet, but I'd imagine that a lot of them could still be affected, and a Wario nerf. As said before, an extra feature should not change the balance of the game. Who is affected by this discovery? As I just said, it's not equal. It does not make defense as a whole better, at like Dingus Bunting made offense as a whole better, but rather it makes certain defensive characters, and in essence it does make defense better, but it is not a tech that is irrespective of the character. It is, there are certain characters, like for example Bowser in middle infield, probably gonna get little to no effect from this tech. PM, probably little to nothing. Any slow middle infield, especially without sliding catch, probably not gonna get much. And I wouldn't say defense is necessarily getting nerfed, rather an unintended buff is being taken away, which yes, does nerf it, but it's not like we are taking something that was originally in the game and getting rid of it, thus nerfing defense. It is getting rid of something that was never meant to buff defense this much in the first place. So, what do I think should be done? I think ZYZX should be removed from the game. Fielder Select 2.0 needs a slight rework. Keep Fielder Select 3.0 R, and I think Fielder Select should just be, it should be 3 buttons with Fielder Select 2.0 and 3.0. Fielder Select 2.0, Y gives you the pitcher, X gives you the catcher to do what I believe is its intended purpose of stopping glitch bunting, and then R to get the closest fielder. So, conclusion, like I just said, ZYZX should be removed for Y pitcher, X catcher, and keep R. This is a new feature. This is not a quality of life change. The game was never intended to give you the middle infield at will. It was intended to give you the character you needed, which is why R, I think, is okay, because it's in line with the game's design. So while it is competitive, Principle 7, it breaks Principles 1, 2, and 3 by changing the game from its base and changing character balance, and you could argue that if this was put in the original game, it could possibly change how some things were designed. It could change the design of things. So, like I said, it's subjective whether it's fun or not, and it's certainly not solving any exploit or bug, and it was never intended, I think, and it's too drastic of a feature, it's too drastic of a change to stay in the game, and that's my argument. So I hope I made a good case for removing ZY and ZX and changing how Fielder Select operates. I hope I covered all my bases. I really tried. I looked through the Discord every day, looked in 600 IQ, had discussions with others, and I wanted to make sure that every point mentioned, both for and against, was brought up. If there's any that I missed, either way, please let me know in the comments so I can respond. And I really hope I was able to, you know, if not change your opinion, at least to get you thinking about it a little bit. So, thank you guys for watching. I worked really hard on this video, a long script, got a lot of footage, a lot of editing, so if you got all the way here, thank you for watching this whole thing and hearing me out, and have a good day.